I want to start with looking at newspaper, because as I was travelling over here, I picked up a newspaper because I'm quite interested in what it is to show. So here's just a few newspaper articles. Disillusioned voters turn to far-right Popular Front. Knife violence escalates with rising poverty gap. Sharp rises in species extinction. Water poverty fuels global tension. Caliphate's collapse will inflame a regional power struggle. GM food production, a disaster awaits. Climate change action well overdue. Oh, England beat Ireland in Six Nations. Now, the problem is the world's falling apart, really, doesn't it? The centre cannot hold, and mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, really. But you get the point, don't you? Throughout the news, constantly, we see this global tensions rising. Just last Friday, not just in London, not just in Birmingham, not just in England, but across Europe and Australia and America, school children walked out, and Ireland, school children walked out to protest about climate change. So in other words, I think perhaps Einstein was right. There is a fact about human stupidity. But what about space? We've wrecked our planet, haven't we? We've wrecked our Earth. And we haven't looked after it. There is a real serious issue. So let's have a look at space. We occupy just the tiniest, weeniest, inchiest little space. On a clear night, you can see about 2,000 stars if you look up, and it's really beautiful to do so, isn't it? With a big telescope, you can see about 100,000 stars, 100,000 galaxies actually, each one of which contains 40 billion stars. And again, that's just with a telescope that you yourself are able to buy. There are between 100 billion to 400 billion stars just in our Milky Way. And our Milky Way is one of billions of different galaxies. The average distance between each star is 30 million kilometres. In other words, space is huge. In order to travel through space, you have to travel a long, long way, much further even than from Portlaoise to Dublin. We've wrecked our world, so what we're going to have to do is look for a different world. We've ruined it. The climate change is a serious issue. So we need to find somewhere out there will be a planet that can support life like ours. But in order to do that, we need to build a plane that travels pretty fast. Now, Concorde, rest its soul, to travel at 1,000 miles an hour. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are the fastest things that people have built. They travel at 56,000 miles an hour. That is until this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a plane that can travel at the speed of light. Okay? And just to prove this plane, we are actually going to make it travel at the speed of light here in this very room. And to prove that it is the very same plane, I'd like someone, please, Stephanie, because I know your name, because I was chatting to you in the pub last night. Could you sign your name, please, just so I know it's your plane? Sign it there. Thank you very much. So there we've got Stephanie's own signature, and I'm going to create this plane. Do you know how fast the speed of light is? Anyone got any idea? 156,000 miles per second. Or if you want to, in kilometres, 299,792 kilometres per second. This plane is going to fly fast. Now just imagine, that we can get a plane travelling at the speed of light. Shall we see if we can do it? Okay, I'm going to chuck this plane. I need someone at the back to pick. Are you happy to catch the plane for me? Are you good at catching? Okay, so as soon as I throw it, I'll shout go and you shout got it. We'll just see if this plane can travel at the speed of light. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go! Look at that! Look at that plane! Speed of light. And can you just check on the signature there to see? Stephanie, is that your signature? There we go, you see. That plane has travelled at the speed of light. Now, the serious bit is just imagine for a moment that we could fit all of us on a spaceship that can travel at the speed of light to a planet that can support life as we know it? Don't you think it would be amazing to be able to discover a planet? And there are planets out there. Well, that's the whole point. That's exactly the whole point. How long do you think it would take travelling at 299,000 kilometres per second to reach a planet that could support life like ours? Anyone got any idea? It would take 35 generations of people, over 400 years, travelling at the speed of light in order to reach a planet that could sustain us. So just imagine that we do that. We build this plane. We'll have to build a bigger one, because that's quite a small paper plane, really. One that could support all of us. We set off into the world. 30 generations. Just imagine how you'd feel if you were born into the 29th generation. And you know that you were so close to the goal. Or if you got there and you found someone had beaten you to it. Oh, we've got to turn back again. But if you did get there and you found this planet, after all that time and all that effort, wouldn't you really want to look after it? Wouldn't that be something that you think, I've got to treasure this? This is so unique and so precious. We really need to treasure it. Well, actually, we don't have to. We don't have to travel all that distance because we still got it here, haven't we? The world we live in is still a beautiful world. And there's no reason why we cannot look after it. There's no reason why we can't keep it as this beautiful thing that it is. But in order to do that, what we need to do is to start helping children to develop respect for it. And I think, going back to this climate change thing, there are two things that I think we need to do in education which are really important. Firstly, we need to give children the opportunity to enjoy their environment so that they learn to value it. And secondly, I think we need to empower the children to give them the opportunity to maintain it and keep things as they should be. So that's really what I want to look at now. And I'm going to pause just for a minute with Principles of Earth Education, because I just heard from Kira that very soon John Cree, and I've learned a lot of this stuff from John Cree. He's coming out to talk. When is he coming to talk?
It started in May for 3 workshops.
Yeah, so John Cree, who's a friend of mine at a centre for Earth Education and for a school research and teachings, is coming out to do 3 workshops. So if you're interested in this type of work, then by all means please see Kira. A lot of this stuff I've learned and gained from him. Now, Principles of Earth Education, I think, connect quite closely to those principles that I was talking about getting children to feel empowered to be able to act positively with the world. It's work where children feel they're part of a natural world. They want to learn about the natural world. They start to become aware of the processes that go on in the natural world. And if you look at the type of things that are involved, it's just the type of things that we had with our classroom earlier. The magic, the stories, the fun, the adventure, the discovery. So what I want to do very quickly is, I'm going to skip through this bit, is I want to start talking through just a few of the exercises. So normally I'd be doing this work with groups of about 10 of you outside, but there's quite a lot of you and I can't teach all of you in groups 10, so we're going to do this activity as if this is a woodland and here we have our very own natural tree. Okay. Now, the first thing I would do when I get children to come into this adventure is to ask them, if you're coming to this adventure, find something natural. Find something natural that's important to you. So I get children to come and get something. So I've found this leaf that I took ages to find earlier on today. And I present this, and when the children present it with me, what I then do is draw... Is there a pen I can pinch? Thank you. I'll just draw palm lines on my hand there, because those are my own unique identifying palm lines. Okay, so thank you. The children hand their tickets in and then I take them off on their adventure. There's all sorts of things that can happen. All I want to do is to get the children to sense the world and to explore the world using all of their senses. So we've got squirrel view and stoat view. Just get children to start off with. to crouch down at the bottom of a tree and imagine that they're a squirrel and they're crawling up the tree, and as they go up, they've got to work out which branches to go along, how to get there, and they've got to try to imagine what can they see when they're at the top of the branch, what can they see when they're looking across. Or, if you want to make things a bit more tricky, you can say, right, stoats are predators, they look forwards. So I've got some really expensive equipment here. Toilet roll. Just get the children to look through a toilet roll up at the world. If you look through the toilet roll, you see things really differently because you're a predator. You only look forward. So you slowly start trying to move up through the trees. Toilet rolls can be used for all sorts of things. These are some of my students on my primary and outdoor learning course because it gets people looking very closely at small objects. Next thing, the eye in the sky. Have you imagined what it's like if you had an eye on top of your head? Just imagine without looking up, everyone's going to suddenly be tempted to look up, aren't they? Without looking up, just try to imagine what it would look like. Now think how you would view the world in a completely different way. So what I would then do with my students is get a mirror, and each student or child has a mirror. If you've got to hold it above your nose, if you hold it below, it just sort of steams up. Above the nose, a hand on the person in front of you, and just walk through a woodland and see the differences. And the differences are multiple. First of all you're aware of are the trees overhead, and they get closer and further away. You see things from a completely different perspective. But I think equally importantly, because you can't see where you're walking, you start to feel things through your feet as well. You get better connected to the ground because you start to sense the roots and the trees underneath. You should try it. It works best just with a small group of children, but it's a really good way to get children to start viewing their world from different perspectives, viewing the world using different senses. Another one, peace and noise. I mean, you've probably done a lot of this stuff already. Playgrounds are noisy places, aren't they? Just to provide the opportunities for children to stand still and listen to the peace around them and listen to the noise around them as well, the natural noise, to become slowly aware of all the different activities that are going on around in the environment around them. And then they start to appreciate the environment. So what I want to do now is get a bit of artistry coming along. Now, I'm rattling through these to provide time for more people later. To provide the means for children to be artists in the natural environment. Have we got natural artists and artists here? We have, haven't we? A few artists. What I then do is provide children just with a frame. And what they have to do is to create their own artwork using the natural environments. Look at these. Some of the students have done. Look at that for a beautiful piece of artwork, and they can name their artwork. They search. It might be up through to the sky, looking up one. But such a simple thing to do, and it can provide a whole wealth of creativity and discussion, and talk about why they chose it. You're probably all used to this, getting children to walk without their shoes and socks on across a space, just to get the feel of what a place is like, to help to get their connections with what places are. Is that the type of thing that a lot of you do anyway? They wouldn't let you. Just say to the children, don't tell anyone. About, you'd probably get into even more trouble then, wouldn't you? But yeah. How about this next one? Using a little mirror. I've got one here, look, a dentist mirror. They're only about 20p each. It provides such an amazing way for children to start looking at the world more closely. Just get them to have a look underneath a mushroom or some type of fungus or a toadstool, whilst still protecting it, still keeping it there, but you're looking from different perspectives. See if you can use this to see if you can find any woodlice in between the rocks. And because it's only a tiny little mirror, they have to really focus on the small spaces. And as soon as you start focusing on the little things, it helps you with a better appreciation of things as well. Another activity, just to get children understanding and learning about the world through the sense of touch. So what I've got here, that is an egg box painted by another one of my boys, and And you give each pair of children a set of phrases, and they could be things like round and hard, or scratchy and soft, rough and wet, slippery and smooth. And the children have to go and find natural objects that represent those different words, and then they challenge the children to feel and try to work out what the words are. So just think of the connections between developmental language and using natural resources. There's all sorts of little things that you can do. And all of these things, they're just things from the kitchen. Now, if we're talking about provision and cost and so on, they cost nothing. So let's come back to our tree, learning from and with trees. So first, what's first? Just getting children, get one child to be blindfolded, and another child leads them to a tree, gets them to feel the tree, and then leads them back again. And the child has got to work out which tree it is. So they have to start looking at the trees in different ways and start inspecting them. Advice from a tree. Now, you know that trees are very wise, don't you? We've got the Ents here. You've seen Lord of the Rings, with the Ents. Trees are wise. They just stand there for a long time, watching, finding out, watching things going on around them. Just imagine what it would be like if you could interview a tree. What questions you might want to ask. In fact, what I'd like you to do, we'll chat. You just got to imagine this as a grand old oak or something. What I'd like you to do now is just write down 2 or 3 questions that you might like to ask this tree. Now, the thing about these questions, trees have seen a huge amount from a past, but because they're so wise, they've also got thoughts about the future as well. So see if you can write down just 2 or 3 questions that you might like to ask a tree. I'll give you 23 seconds to do so. Go. Have we got some ideas about trees? Any questions? One of the nicest ones I heard from one of my students was, do squirrels tickle? I thought that was a lovely one. And any questions people would like to ask? Because we've got a lovely big oak tree here. Any questions from anyone?
Have you a name?
Have you a name? That's a good one. Any others?
Are you well?
Are you well? Yeah. How old are you? Yeah.
Is it sad when your leaves fall, or do you kind of relieve?
Yeah, I wonder if you get cold when your leaves fall off. Yeah, what's it feel like when your leaves start dropping off? And you've got questions for the future as well, because a lot of these trees get cut down, don't they?
That's why I asked him, was he wet?
Yeah. Should we try one of these questions? Yeah. Do they have dreams? Wow. I'm going to ask that one. Should we find out? Are you ready? Hello, tree. Tree. I don't know his name yet because I haven't asked your question, you see, so I'll just call him Tree. Tree, or her, Tree. Tree. Do you have dreams? No. It's not answering. So what I would then do is get children in pairs, one person stand in front and ask the questions, and the other child hide behind the tree and answer on behalf of the tree. Now just think about the learning that goes on there, the fact that children have to imagine themselves as a tree. Think about the types of things that tree might have seen and learned and know about from the future. If that's not helping a connection to nature, I don't know what is. What I've also got here is some poetry here, advice from a tree. So one of the things I do with the students and the children when I worked before was to get children to do a bit of poetry. Okay, the way to get a bit of poetry is you get groups of children, perhaps 8 children, put them in 4 pairs, and get one pair to lie underneath the tree and look up. I made a real mess down there, haven't I? Have a look up and just think of 2 or 3 words to represent what they see. 2 or 3 words or phrases. Then another pair might look very, very closely at the bark and come up with 2 or 3 words. Another pair might look at the branches coming out. And then another pair stand right back and look at the whole thing. So you've got 4 different pairs, each creating their own little elements of a poem from different perspectives. Then the children get together and they create a poem which involves everybody's words and phrases. So you're bringing this notion of learning from different perspectives. And then what we do is we end up having a poetry recital. So the children will stand by the tree and you can introduce it saying, these are the poets, this is the tree, let's have poetry. And then all of the children then recite their poems. But just think of the learning that takes place there about working together, creating something, a poem which is real and is there as a tree. But also when the children get back into the classroom, one of the most important elements of learning, I think, is being able to come up with deep answers, being able to look from different perspectives. So when a child is looking at some history topic or writing in English and creating a story, you can say to them, can you remember when you did that tree? You didn't just follow one line of thought. You looked at the tree from close to, you looked at the tree from afar, you looked at it from underneath. In other words, you brought in different people's perspectives to reach your poem. Surely that's the way you need to tackle this deep, this extended learning question that you've got in English, or this problem-solving exercise you've got with physics. Come up with different perspectives. So there's lots of learning that we can do to connect nature to school. Our place in the world. Right at the beginning, I handed myself as a child a natural ticket, and as a result of that natural ticket, I put palm lines on my hand. One of the last things I do with the children is get them to look at their palm lines again. And at this point, I've never found a child who hasn't managed to do this. And I explain to them that all of them are unique. They're all amazing in their own ways. They've all got their unique palm lines. And nature is unique as well. But all of us are connected to nature. So I then get the children to look at their palm lines. It's easy with this. Look at the palm lines. Look at, I almost fell off the stage there. It drops down at the back. Look at the palm lines. Look up and see if you can identify your palm lines in the branches of the trees above you. And they all manage it. And they get that sense of connection to nature. And then the very last thing is their little natural object, their special thing. Now this ticket was handed to me because it was a special thing, wasn't it? Now remember what I said at the beginning about learning being emotive. Deeper learning stays better in the mind if there is an emotional attachment to it. Now the child gave me this natural ticket to come on this journey because it was something special to them. So you can hand it back to them and say, this is your special ticket. You can do what you like with this special ticket. You might want to take it home and hand it to someone you love because it's a special thing for you. You might want to keep it safe as a memory of the work you did and what you learned. Or you might want to just leave it here because it's special because of the place it came from. But it's a way of wrapping up that learning. And what I think the best way to get to work through with children is to find tools and techniques, and all sorts of these are all really simple things, and I'm sure you've got loads of ideas and things as well to share. Just find little tools and techniques and teaching ideas to help children feel connected to the environment and that they can learn to respect it and respond to it because they feel a part of it. And I think I managed to finish on time, haven't I? I hope you found that interesting and useful. Thank you.